So in other words, they pump enough of it in so where now all of a sudden this synthetic molecule is into the bloodstream and the body's no longer able to defend itself. All right. That's how we get side effects, by the way. Side effects are literally the listing of the things you're talking about are synthetic molecular structures that are being pushed into the body through this process.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Modern Healer's Journey. My name is Tammy Bennett, and I'm an Oriental medicine doctor, host of the show, and practitioner in Central Florida. I am on Rumble and YouTube. I invite you to subscribe and like on the show. And today I have a special guest. His name is Ron Gourley. Ron is with the company called Trentech Bio. We've discussed some things on the phone about his supplements, and I would like to do a formal introduction for Ron. And Ron, tell us a little bit more about your background and Trentech Bio, please.
Yeah. Hi, Tammy. So Trentech Bio is basically a holding company. So if you go looking for it, you won't find it. The product line that we launched out of that company, the first one, is called CurcuminPro. So it's a curcumin-based technology company based on new IP around delivery systems. So Trentech Bio is basically as a holding company focused on supplements and or technologies that have to do with helping people, both animals and humans, also a little bit in the environmental science side, with new technologies or technology platforms that are evolving.
Excellent. So IP, for those that don't know, is intellectual property, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you are the CEO of the company?
Yes.
Okay. And I personally found your product by doing some research on curcumin. I've heard incredible things about curcumin for a long time. I've been a practitioner for over 30 years, and it's come up a lot. And it's kind of a buzz phrase right now in the industry for anti-inflammatory. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about the buzz behind it. So can you tell us about the difference between curcumin and turmeric, since a lot of people do not know what that is?
You are correct about that. It's a great way to start it at the basics. So I got involved on the curcumin side. Actually, we were working on spagyric technologies with another project. And so I got introduced to, spagyrics are pre-homeopathy in terms of technologies. And so a lot of that's plant extracts, doing extractions, ethanol extractions, recombining things. And I started learning about curcumin when we were doing these projects, and that project was anti-inflammatory skin activity. So we were doing with atopic skin diseases. And I really kind of fell in love with the curcumin story. And so we started looking at curcumin, and this was 9 years ago, by the way. So we started looking at it, and the problem is basically starts at the root, which is where you're going. So turmeric, which is the plant, part of the ginger family, is the source of curcumin. And so I have to take people back there. And even if people I'll say, oh, what is turmeric? So turmeric is a root. Ayurvedic medicine, you'll see 3,000 years of use of turmeric. Its primary sources are yellow dye and also as a spice, typically in Indian food or Asian foods. So those are the primary source. It does have amazing qualities. It has a massive problem, as does curcumin extracted from it. And that problem is it's virtually insoluble. So as a product that you're going to take for health benefits, the issue is it has these benefits, but to get the benefits, you almost can't get enough into the body, physically can't take enough to get that. Your body can't process enough of it to get that into it, which you would see when you read studies that have been done on cancer, for instance, and how much they had pumped into people to try to get a result out of it. So we looked at turmeric and we were looking at its qualities. Now, for everybody who's going to listen to this, curcumin is one curcuminoid that comes from turmeric. So you extract the curcuminoids. So there's many molecules, not just one. One of them is called curcumin, which is where it goes by the name curcumin. But only 3.5% on average. When you do an extraction from turmeric over into curcumin, you get about 3.5% of it. So it's very little. And then you have curcumin. So now we've got this curcumin that's been extracted. Now we have another set of problems. It also is virtually insoluble. So even though now I've kind of eliminated the turmeric oils, which are part of what turmerics are, which are for a lot of people, including myself, I'm a big I have a hard time with turmeric oils. Indian food and I don't get along. Turmeric oils can be, it's incredibly hard on the gut. And it also adds, there's a flavor profile. Turmeric and curcumin are, to me, flavor profile wise, if you're taking them in any quantity, they're very bitter.
Yep.
Curcumin is extremely bitter. So we were looking at all this. We said, well, how do you increase what people call bioavailability, which I would talk to. That word is a word that drives me crazy because the supplement industry has abused that word. People don't understand the word. They don't understand what actual bioavailability is, or the fact that if I do get something bioavailable into the body, doesn't necessarily mean I assimilated it to the cells. So in other words, how did my body take it up? And we're water. I mean, I'm 70% water. You're about 60% water. And so if something is not soluble by water, it becomes very, very difficult for the body to take it up, right? So you have to either change its delivery platform or, well, actually, it's really what you have to do. If you're going to have an oil-based system, you're going to have to move it. So what we were looking at is something, how do we do that? So that's turmeric. Curcumin has the same set of problems in getting it into the body. And what we set out to do is resolve that problem of delivery by changing the metabolic pathway, or how the body was going to process the curcumin, or how we introduced it.
Okay. Let me dumb it down for me for a second and tell me if I'm right. Turmeric is the actual root. It looks a lot like ginger, so it's knotty. It's elongated like this, comes out of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
The curcumin is the molecule from the turmeric plant that is effective as an anti-inflammatory.
It is one of the molecules. Right. There are many curcuminoids, but it is the one. It is the one that they named it after, is what I should say.
Got it. Okay. So other than the bioavailability issue, your pet peeve word, your company figured out a way to make the curcumin product biosoluble. And can you tell us how that is, or is that a trade secret?
No, it's actually interesting. Part of it is biosoluble is a term that basically I coined and registered to describe what we did in terms of solubility. It's bioavailable, soluble, so I called it biosoluble curcumin. And what we did was this. So if you touch curcumin, this is kind of an interesting part of it. If you touch curcumin, it instantly will turn your skin yellow.
Yep.
I mean, it's immediate. Well, we're sitting with some scientists who basically pondered that and said, wow, this stuff loves protein. It just loves protein. So what we did was we tucked it inside the protein. So now you have a protein, and then we looked at different protein structures. But let's take whey protein isolate. It can be any protein. So the intellectual property, if you want, is geared around being able to tuck this inside of a protein. So you take curcuminoids, they're small molecules. You take a protein. Basically, we tuck them inside the protein. Close that back up, if you will. So basically, now the curcumin is sitting inside the protein. And what that did was some really interesting things. One is the bitter flavor went away because now no longer the curcumin is not longer exposed. So if you took our product, it's capsule form, right? We're now going to sell bulk product, so you can put it right into your smoothie in the morning. But if you take that powder and you just put it in water, stir it up and drink it, it's going to taste like the water. So in other words, the curcumin stays in place up until the body digests it, right? So now, go ahead.
I was going to ask, when the body digests it, it would be a breakdown of hydrochloric acid in the gut?
Yeah, but that's not where protein goes. So as you digest, if you take something in your body, protein is taken to the small intestine. Right at the duodenum, it's pulled across.
Got it.
So the protein moves across, and the body sees protein. It's still seeing protein. So as the protein comes across, now if you have whey protein isolate, which is a nice, simple amino acid chain, the real, I guess, fun part of this is in the digestion. So as the body digests this protein down, the curcumin is attracted to the amino acid bonds. And so it will link itself to those bonds and then be shuttled into the body without going through where all the competitive products are basically, not all of them, but most of them, they end up having to go through the digestive tract, do a liver pass to try to get something into the bloodstream to be activated. This is, again, it's a different metabolic pathway, and this is the protein pathway. And, things we learned, it's, plant proteins, as you know, or maybe people don't, they're shorter chain proteins. They're harder to digest proteins. They don't have as many of these bonds as an animal protein does. However, because somebody might be sensitive to whey, we also have an organic brown rice protein as an example. So you can have a vegan. And then recently we took another advance in that whole technology, and we started using beta-cyclodextrin as the carrier. So now the curcumin's tucked inside of a beta-cyclodextrin, which is a big, long name for a very short chain polysaccharide sugar.
Got it.
So now you're taking a metabolic pathway as a sugar rather than a protein, which is very highly effective. Forgetting what we talk about in curcumin, we want free curcumin into the body. So into the bloodstream, you want amount of free curcumin. And that's what we're doing, is we're avoiding this whole total digestive process that chews so much of it up, and then ends up with companies doing really crazy things like putting black pepper extracts in their product, which are highly dangerous. And that's something I want to teach people about, is stay the heck away from that lie. It's a marketing lie, and it's very dangerous.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. So the buzz in the industry for the last, I would say, 5 years on the curcumin side is always Piperine, black pepper extract, and curcumin must go together because somehow magically that makes everything available to the system and you get the best benefit. Tell us why that's probably not true.
Yeah, well, I can tell you the science behind why it's not true. So I call that parlor chemistry. So does it increase? So here's the problem, right? So they're like, okay, these companies want to figure out how they can say they got more curcumin into the bloodstream, higher bioavailability. So they take black pepper. Well, what does black pepper extract actually do? So when you take it, it goes in, and you want a leaky gut, take black pepper extract, because what it does is it irritates the lining of the intestine that allows literally almost like a leaky gut syndrome where you're actually getting a leakage. So saying, oh, we're getting more in the bloodstream. But the really bad part is it shuts down. There's 2 critical enzymes in your liver that your body uses for detoxing. It shuts them down. So what price am I paying for this? So number one, you now have toxins that your liver would have been blocking now available to go back into the body. You're literally promoting a irritation of the lining of your intestine in doing so. You also, and I don't have the total list, you can look this up online, but it's a very large list of pharmaceutical drugs that you have now deactivated. In other words, you have literally by taking this black pepper extract, it's kind of like don't take grapefruit,
Right.
grapefruits or grapefruit juice for certain drugs.
Yep.
Right, because what it basically does is it eliminates the activity of the drug in its design. Well, black pepper does that as well. And you're limited in the amount you can take. Now, I do know that there's studies, I was about a year ago, I was looking into, they were looking at fertility issues on women with regards to black pepper extracts because there was a concern. Now, I don't know where those studies sit, but I know that some of the research I spoke to said that they had a very big concern about that. So the long and the short of it, it was a marketing scam. It was a marketing deal. And then they said, well, if you don't have this, and by the way, the company that had the intellectual property on a specific black pepper is the company that was out there pumping this information out there into the marketplace. So did it do it? Yes, but the cost is extremely high for what you did. And so by doing what we've invented, if you will, we've taken the body's natural process and rather than irritating any part of the intestines or the kidneys or the liver, we're actually enhancing the performance of them by having free curcumin available to do, whether it's, if you want to use the FDA's term, to create a positive inflammatory response in the body, which we all know is the same thing as anti-inflammatory, but people own that word because you can't say that. But you read all the documents. I tell people, and Tammy, I would encourage you to do this. Tell anybody to put the word curcumin in their browser, pick any disease and put it behind that word and look at what pops up. And that's just on the internet we're exposed to. When you get into the internet that is used by the researchers and the universities worldwide, which is a separate, way more technical documentation, and it's a incredible how much data is out there. The reason why, I want to explain this to people, 98% of all disease comes from inflammation, period. So if you have a natural anti-inflammatory that you can take every day of your life that helps your body shut down inflammation, you have something from a standpoint of longevity, regeneration, that's amazing. And that's why they were looking so hard at the molecular structures of curcumin and trying to figure out how to, get more value out of it. In everything that we talk about right now, when you talk about the inflammation side of this, that is the key to what we try to do with our products. And we did it so you don't have to just take a pill. All right. Everybody has to take a pill because it's bitter, because it's nasty tasting, and that's what they can do. When we change that dynamic, we change the ability to give you drinks, chewables, chocolates, jelly beans, pet products, all kinds of ways that you can now take this product in daily without having to actually sit there and physically take pills, or what I call pill fatigue. People are just really kind of tired of pills. So that's kind of a long story to get to really why we went after this and why we spend so much time building new product platforms for customers.
So 2 questions. Does the piperine or the black pepper extract, is the same harm from eating black pepper as a spice as well, or is that different?
It's different. No, it's different.
Okay.
And again, it's an extract. It's like anything, right? You eat too much salt, you can kill yourself. Sure. Right? So too much of anything can cause issues, especially large. But as a spice, if you're using it as like white pepper or black pepper, no. I wouldn't advise eating it in 1,000 milligrams at a time. Yeah. But
and then my next question is, with regards to FDA or supplement regulation as a whole, why is the black pepper extract allowed to be used in the products if we know it's a gut irritant to the point of causing other medications not to work properly and or leaky gut syndrome as a whole and a host of problems with that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, actually, because I think what it gets down to, and I'm not an expert on FDA, but if you position this, the way we position either as an excipient, so in other words, it doesn't have an activity. Think about it. They're saying that you add the black pepper extract over into the curcumin, and then they make the claims about, what the curcumin is going to do, but not what the black pepper is. So it could be that it's structured just as an excipient. Means it's just it's something you add to your formulation that has no bearing on it whatsoever. And a lot of companies play this game with the FDA by using excipients. If you want to get something approved, like I've done a lot of work in OTC drugs. If you want to get something done in an OTC drug and your natural ingredients are the ones doing the heavy lifting, and you can't say that. They can be in there, but they can't do anything. They're not allowed to. The FDA says, nope, you have to have an activity, an active product. So you take something approved by the FDA, you put it in your product, even though your excipients are doing the heavy lifting, that you add that ingredient so you can make the label claims to it, right? So black pepper, in this case, you got curcumin, they're saying, with piperine or black pepper extract, but they're treating it just like a natural excipient. We're just putting it in there. It's increasing it. They're not making it the necessary claim of black pepper. You can research the black pepper. We actually have on our site, we're going after this black pepper myth, I call it. And I'll be doing some of my own talking about black pepper because it is very dangerous. But it was a marketing deal, and there are companies trying to defend their position on it.
Interesting.
But the FDA in and of itself doesn't take a position on that because you're really not making a claim on it. You're using it just as an additional item in your product.
Yeah. It's almost like the data will point to ever what you want the data to point to.
Yeah.
Right?
Here's an interesting question for you. And you probably have thought about it, but I want everybody who's listening to your podcast to think about this. So the FDA, when we talk about the FDA, we talk about like dosing, okay? And you're talking about a product that you're going to take. How do they come up with a dose, right? I talk about this because this is what these nutraceutical companies are trying to play off on everybody. So when they say, okay, here's the dose of this, you know how they come up with the dose?
Are you going to tell me, or are you asking me?
Do you know?
I don't.
Okay. This is a great question. It's something to teach people.
Okay.
It's called pharmacokinetics. So PK testing, when you have a product, all right, so let's take it, it's a drug. This is where it all came from. You have a synthetic molecule. You take the synthetic molecule and you track it. So you take basically they take 120-pound women, which are in the study, they draw blood, they baseline it, and then they go ahead and then they take this molecule that they want to feed into people, and they run it through the body up until the point that the liver can no longer process it. So in other words, they pump enough of it in so where now all of a sudden this synthetic molecule is into the bloodstream and the body's no longer able to defend itself. All right? That's how we get side effects, by the way. Side effects are literally the listing of the things you're talking about are synthetic molecular structures that are being pushed into the body through this process. Now, the measurement that's called PK, pharmacokinetics, all right? So here's a question it drives me nuts. You have companies and supplement companies out there trying to mimic pharmaceutical companies, taking natural products like curcumin and running them on PK studies and saying, oh, we ran a PK study. We ran PK studies and they were all over the board. It was so hard to get any data because the molecular structures are so active in the body that it's almost impossible to track a single curcumin molecular structure correctly to get it done. We moved off of that because we said this is highly inaccurate. But yet you have companies out there, and if you ask them for their PK data, you'll never get it. So I'd like to see the PK data that you ran on that where you said that.
Right.
Because we spent the money and we went after it and we said this does not work because it's incredibly hard to track it. Synthetic molecule, I could tag it, I could track it. Natural molecules, and there's a lot of curcuminoids, virtually impossible to track all those and to tell you, what effect they had or what I got through your body. But that's something that I always get people to think hard about when they're looking at the marketing that these companies use.
Sure. It's interesting because as a traditional Chinese medicine specialist, I have a good base of herbal knowledge, right? And a lot of what we have to do, like in herbal school, there's a big giant room where they have all the herbs in jars and you're supposed to be able to handle them and cook them and grind them and do all that fun stuff with the raw material. And then you cook the raw material down into a decoction, and then you give people the formula and you tell them how to take it. You drink an ounce every day, and then you build up to 2 ounces and whatnot. You let your body get used to it and so on. And then when you take that instead, and you get like non-compliant patients, it tastes bad, it smells bad, I don't want to cook it, blah, blah, blah. Then you get to grinding it into a powder and then putting the powder in water and mixing it. Then you have a different dosage. And then you get it down into little tiny pills or capsules. And then you have a very different dosage. And the Chinese pharmacopoeia, which is yay thick, several volumes, tells you about the experience of herbalists prior and how to dose it. But when I see a patient that's taking Chinese herbs and they ask me, why am I taking 12 of these a day in pill form? I have to explain that to get the amount of herb required to make an effect, a positive effect in their body, they have to take a high dosage in pill form because you can't get all that ingredient into a little pill without taking 12 to 15 pills a day. And it's hard for us in Western society to wrap our brains around that.
No, it's all true.
Yeah.
I mean, we live in a McDonald's society.
Right.
We want it fast. We want it to work. And when you go from synthetic molecular structures and you think about somebody who's taking NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, those would be your Tylenols, your Advils, all those things for pain, not recognizing, oh, that might be convenient that you just took 2 of those, but do you have any idea what you're doing to your liver and your kidneys right now?
A lot of people don't know.
No, they have no clue. Or the people who, and I mean to be this way, go to the CDC website, look at how many people die taking Tylenol every year.
A lot.
Because, they didn't read the bottle. They didn't see that it says, do not take this with alcohol. And you got people who go out drinking and they take Tylenol before they go to bed, thinking it's going to help them with a headache. And wow, it's just poison. So to your point, natural stuff takes longer. It does, the dosing, to your point, is different. Curcumin curcumin was not about how much you got in, by the way. This is the interesting part. People were taking 15 grams of curcumin in these studies, cancer studies and everything you look at. And it wasn't about that. It was about how you got it in. So when we changed the metabolic pathway to get it into the bloodstream without having to go through the whole liver pass issue, it really changed that dynamic greatly.
So tell me about the studies that have been conducted that you've read. Like, I know India's done a lot, Israel, China. Which studies are the most profound that you've looked at that you're like, whoa, this is phenomenal? And what conditions are being helped? And I'll disclaim it now. We're not treating, curing, advising, providing physical medicine. We're not doing any of that. We're here to empower and educate people. So educate me on the studies that you've seen.
The studies I've read, probably the most dynamic ones, are from the United States. The U.S. studies on specific disease states, if you will. I mean, they're doing cancer studies. They're doing all this work with non-alcohol fatty liver disease, which is something we can talk about. They're doing cognitive studies. Australia's got a big push right now on the cognitive side of this. And I've looked at a lot of different studies from different perspectives. Gut health is big. I believe in the gut health. Our clay technology, by the way, which is part of our company, really deals with gut motility, which is huge. So we look at it kind of like you do. We look at it from a holistic standpoint, total body synergy. I think the thing that's most impressive going forward right now is regenerative medicine. And I've been talking with a lot of guys. I like peptide technologies. I like linking in. Curcumin has amazing regenerative properties, and it has amazing properties towards cognitive health. And we are heavily into that. We are just weeks away from launching our new Brain Boost product, which is going to feature, it's clinically tested, a trial for cognitive health, in actually feeding the brain to protect the brain or defend the brain, if you will, from degeneration. We probably all know about, if you don't, about the amyloid plaque situation. For your people who don't know, I mean, it was literally, they told everybody amyloid plaque was the cause of, Alzheimer's, this and dementia. They had drugs, only to find out that they made this all up. I mean, can you imagine? I can't even imagine if I'd have had a loved one that was taking this stuff and it was all a scam. The gentleman who I work with, Dr. Lewis, who's an expert in brain and cognitive health, if you will, had done some formulation, studied it, absolutely amazing results. They'll be posted up on our website. I'll be doing a show. Our product's called Brain Boost coming out, but it deals with, it's the whole body. So when you're taking it, the cognitive development and the health is absolutely astounding, but it's every cell in the body that actually benefits from it. It's not just one.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where, when you talk about studies, I'm looking at NAFLD. We're going to be doing some work with some universities on that. I'm also working very heavily on type 2 diabetes. We have just one of the things we talk about right now, we have a product, the beta-cyclodextrin curcumin we have. That product is as good as anything I can not mention on your show. Normalizing glucose levels in a person with type 2 diabetes without having to actually lean on a drug. And that particular technology we have researched. We've been doing that for many, many years. We have CRO models, clinical research organization models that we run on that to prove out our concepts. So we basically are now working with diabetes clinics on using that technology, that particular product, to help keep people off of, let's say they have resistance to some of these drugs. You can actually jump over to something as simple as the beta-cyclodextrin curcumin to find what you're looking for on glucose management.
That's very interesting. Let me go back to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Is the concept about the curcumin that it reduces the inflammation, therefore the scarring is less? Is that basically the dumbed down version of that?
Yes, it gets a little bit more than that. Yes, but that's a good way to look at it.
Okay.
And it also gets back into detoxifying the system, which in the NAFLD studies that we will be doing, it will involve curcumin technologies. It will also involve the clay technologies, also some aloe technologies, and some very unique vitamin E technologies.
Interesting.
That are all centered inside of a platform, a delivery platform, if you will, of short chain polysaccharide structures that are basically cell energy delivery systems.
And
so I'm trying not to get too technical on that, but the reality is that it's really amazing. And the initial stuff that we've done on it is just mind blowing. And of course, the challenge becomes it's not a drug. And I think we're going to be incredibly effective with our product. And then we're going to have to figure out how to partner that in as an adjuvant with maybe something else so that we can get it to the marketplace for people to be able to use it without having to make a claim on it. But the results that we've seen initially are just outstanding.
Okay. And as far as the brain is concerned, I wanted to go back to that amyloid plaquing thing that you brought up. I realized that there was a big scam being run. Is the idea, again, the same as the liver, that the true damage to the brain is just truly inflammation, or are they also leaning on bacterial or viral components? What's the latest?
No, it's heavily inflammation.
Okay.
It's heavily inflammation driven. It's not, there's some stuff I've seen, and maybe you've seen this as well. I've got some other healers that I know that have done amazing work with gut issues, and specifically, I'm trying to remember the name, people who have not just leaky gut, but
H. pylori?
No. My mind just went blank on it. Anyways, it's basically where the gut itself, they end up doing surgery on them. Help me out. You can cut this and edit this. Anyways, that's a virus. And I'm thinking about it. You find it a lot more in women than you find it in men. I hate missing a word.
You can look it up if you want.
No, it's right there.
I think you need more curcumin, Ron.
Anyways, so this disease, come on, what is it? I had a friend that had it.
Not ulcers. Oh, are you
no,
talking about
no.
Barrett's esophagitis?
No, it's not Barrett's esophagitis, but we can talk about that as well.
Yeah.
No. It's
Crohn's. Colitis?
Crohn's. That's it.
Okay.
Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
So you can add all that up to this. So Crohn's disease is something that the medical community doesn't know what to do with it, right? They literally don't know. And they're throwing cancer drugs at it. They're throwing chemotherapy at it.
Yeah.
And then they do surgery on people. And I tell people all the time, I said, they're not giving you an answer. Now, I could take you to somebody who's healed probably, 60 people of this disease. And it's very clearly to him, it's a virus. And you have to starve the virus out of the gut. And it could take up to 6 months. But they're all now normal, right? And these people were being told they were going to have surgery. And I was like, here's an alternative for you besides that. And if you can find me one paper or one document in the medical journal anywhere that says that anything that they've tried with using chemotherapy drugs on Crohn's or that surgery was effective, I said, by all means, then that's an option. But if you can't find one, then why don't you take something where there is an option where you can point to it and say, maybe it is a gut virus and maybe it just needs to be starved out of the body correctly. And that's a solution versus what I consider to be a horrible option.
Yeah. Ironically, and you and I never talked about this before, my father-in-law had Crohn's, and they said that he got it in Vietnam after having dysentery. And they told him that he would end up with colon cancer should he live that long and thrive over time, and then eventually have to have his colon removed. And I think that's interesting to point out because there are some former physicians and researchers from back in the 1920s as early as the 20s that I've read about, that have linked a lot of our modern diseases to either virus, bacteria, or parasites.
Absolutely.
And it was interesting that you mentioned that, because he, in fact, my father-in-law, had to have his colon entirely removed. And it's been a nightmare since then, trying to deal with the aftermath of that surgery. Now he's lived a good long time, but I'm sure he, would have preferred to not have to deal with that. And now I'm kind of curious about that. So that's really fascinating to me.
I would encourage anybody who's dealing with gut issues, they kind of jump over to that clay real quick.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, talk about bentonite clay, correct?
Yeah, well, it's a very unique form. So bentonite is a whole structure of different clays, right? So to narrow that real fast, most clays come from, it's volcanic activity, by the way, is what it is. So at one point, 100 million years, 300 million years ago, volcanic activity, volcanic ash becomes a clay deposit through compression. You get the clay. Saltwater clays, bentonite clays, have a lot of issues, and I'm going to do a whole show on this too, but it's has to do with heavy metals. You have a lot of heavy metal composure, and these clays will actually strip nutrients from your body. So if you're taking this clay and you think you're going to do good, and they'll say, oh, well, don't take it with food. You got to take it at whatever time because it strips out nutrients. That's all true. This clay deposit comes from the United States. It's 300 million years old. And here's the unique part about it. That 300 million years ago, that was a massive freshwater lake, whatever you want to call it. It was all freshwater, volcanic. So it had volcanic activity, but it was rinsed by fresh water rather than by salt water. It's an aluminum silicate clay. It's in the bentonite family, but it's the only one in the world. They haven't found any other deposit like it. It sits about 65 feet under the Mississippi River. So I don't know who found that. I mean, think about that. Let's go look for clay underneath the river.
Right.
But this clay has about 15 years of research. Texas A&M has been behind a lot of it. The research, for if people really want to get into it, they can go to yourclay.com. It's a very nondescript site with a lot of really fascinating information on it. But the clay has been studied, and here's the really cool part. It does not block nutrient uptake. So you can take it with food. You can take it during the day. It will go in, as it's in your gut, this is the really cool part. It will bind aflatoxins and mycotoxins. So it will, which is for people, by the way, that's molds. For anybody who doesn't know what those are, you see like dogs die, the aflatoxins in animal foods. Aflatoxins are in, if you are eating corn chips.
Peanuts.
Yeah, they're in peanuts. But if you're eating corn chips, right? I don't care who you are, you can't keep it out of there. And so in different parts of our country and in the world, these are serious issues because of the molds in the grains in the food storage. In Africa, it's a massive problem that not only can cause death, but cause severe cognitive disabilities.
Yeah, hallucinations, visions, the whole spiel.
Yeah, and so we'll block that for us, but also ketones, free radicals, specific viruses. As you go look at, like they looked at Clostridium difficile, C. diff.
Yep.
And the studies they talk about, so all this work was done. The clay has properties, from my standpoint, for detoxing. So I look at it not as the detox. Everybody thinks, well, I take all this stuff and I end up detoxing and spending time in the bathroom. That's not it. On a daily basis, it keeps from your liver things that your liver be actually toxic to the liver, toxic to you. If they second pass kinetics, for instance, people on keto diets, please listen to me. If you're on a keto diet and you don't know what it is, please research it, because I have 9 out of 10 people think they just go down to the store, buy the food that says keto on it, and I lose weight. They don't understand ketosis, or they don't understand what they're doing. And in the fat cells of your body, for everybody who's losing weight, that's where your body stores toxins. And as you start to lose weight, those toxins are released. And the second pass kinetics of those going into your liver cause problems. That's an issue. So you're able to actually have something in your system every day that is going to grab those toxins. I happen to be Irish and enjoy some Irish whiskey. if you drink alcohol, the first pass of alcohol through your liver, that what happens is you basically take the molecule, the ethanol, you clip off part of it, and it becomes basically a ketone. It becomes an alkaloid. The second pass of that through the liver is what causes the problem. So, we have our detox product.
Phase 1 detox, phase 2, correct?
Yeah. So my first one is you've got curcumin is a great super antioxidant. So I've got an antioxidant structure in there that's working for me. I got the clay structure in there that's working for me, and I'm really protecting my liver. So on a daily basis, I take it daily just because I know that we have just free radicals alone, just things in our foods that I want to protect my liver from having to deal with those. I take it. So the clay technology has massive benefits. Now for the diabetes, like I deal with the diabetics. So we talked to them about this and say, look, you're going to lose weight. You're going to be losing weight. But if you're taking specific drugs, you're losing weight. There's second pass kinetics on drugs. There's second pass kinetics on the toxins that were stored in the fat that you want to lose. So we really, if we're going to be dealing with anybody, non-alcohol fatty liver disease, type 2 diabetes, anybody who's dealing with any kind of medications, we talked about taking the clay. The one thing we do on the clay is if you are taking certain medications, you want to take it 2 hours before, 2 hours after the drug, just because it in and of itself can bind calciums.
Right.
It delivers calcium, so it actually adds calcium to your body, but it's got a structure in it that will allow it to actually attach to certain molecules. And so we just tell people, if you're taking opioids of any kind, you would want to not take the clay 2 hours before, 2 hours after, because it can deactivate it.
Got it. And you mentioned before, and we're going to probably have to wrap up because we'll have to download this whole thing and make sure everything does technology-wise what it's supposed to. You mentioned pet products before. Tell me a little bit about what pet products you have and the benefit.
Well, we have one right now, and we're going to take it into a treat. It's called UltiPet. And UltiPet is a product that we designed mostly. It's designed around dogs because we use fatty liver or defatted liver. I'm on fatty liver and defatted liver.
Right.
So we use defatted liver as a major ingredient. It's because a lot of products use liver flavor, and we wanted all the minerals, we wanted the enzymes, we wanted all the activity, the organ meat for the dog. Then we added the CurcuminPro technology, which because we don't have a taste to our product, we're able to give the dog now all the benefits you're getting from curcumin, we give to your dog. And then we had glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM. So we're dealing with all the tendons, the muscles, the joints on the dog. We added bromelain, which is it's a pineapple enzyme.
Yeah. Yep.
To basically help for their digestive tract. Then we added the clay. And the clay is a big part of this because most of the problems you have with dogs have to do with the molds that are in the grains of the foods that they eat. So the clay helps them, just like it helps you, to not let those toxins build up in their system where they end up getting cancer, in literally intestinal cancers and stomach cancers like we get. It's a massive cause of it. So yes, UltiPet is that product. My friends call it dog crack because it's a topper. You just top it on the top of the food,
right,
and they go nuts over their food. I mean, it really is kind of funny because lots of good stories. You'll see them on our site if you want. But a lot of good stories about people who are putting on their dog's food, and the dog they're like a whole new dog.
Nice.
I mean, anyways, yeah. So thank you for bringing that up because that's an excellent product.
Sure. So we do have to wrap. I really appreciate it, Ron. I'm going to add to the end of the video ways that people can find the products. I actually do have the products on my website, and I'm happy to offer a little bit of a discount for my clients through my website. And there are other ways that we can find the products as well all over. And if there's anything else you wanted to add, feel free to do so now. And if not, we'll add it at the end in post.
Yeah, I have. Since you're doing all that, we could talk more about it. I've got a product coming out that we could actually help launch through your site. It's called Joints. It's JOYNTZ, and it's specifically formulated, obviously, for people who are athletic, getting older, the joints, and it uses collagen. So it's collagen, hyaluronic acid, branched chain amino acids, electrolytes. It's got the clay technology in it. It's got CurcuminPro in it. It tastes like Hawaiian punch. It's delicious. And that product is coming out. So for all your listeners, we'll stay in touch, and we'll also have some new orange dreamsicle chewable curcumins that you can take. So as we launch those, we'll do something special with you for your clients.
Okay, I appreciate it, Ron. Thank you so much. Like and subscribe to my channel on YouTube and Rumble.